Hello everyone, and welcome to this assembly and painting video for Kingdom Death's Ringtail Fox Death High version. So this is as I said, the Death High version of the Ringtail Fox, which is originally a model that is pretty much very sought over after the community in its two previous versions, and then they came out with the Death High version, which is a line that I've been really enjoying. I have all three current models. Oh, and as a quick note, the hand there is not inherently separate. Mine broke off and I had to re-glue it, but it didn't break too bad. This model actually has broken a lot compared to some other models, like the Nunchucks have broken post this model being finished. But assembling this model wasn't too hard. I can't remember if it was this one or the Death High white speaker that I had to basically rip the head off, or the upper part off, and reattach because there was a giant gap. But on to the painting. But before that, as I was saying, I've been really enjoying the Death High variants. I like the whole attitude that these characters have, and I like that it's mostly a take on some of the generics. Obviously, the white speaker's not a generic, but actually, the preacher isn't either now that I think about it. Haha. Oh well. Regardless. So, getting to the painting of the model, starting with some flesh. I went with a basic tone flesh for this, rather than something super pale. And it ends up not being a lot of the model. It's primarily the wrist, the face, and what's exposed under the skirt. So, following that, I move on to the shirt, which I try to leave white for the most part, using my off gray, or really light gray, as a base coat for it, so that it can be highlighted white later. Then on to the skirt, and, well, what will be the hat as well, with this shade of green that I ended up using as the base coat for it. I kind of took the easy route on finishing the skirt and the hat. They're actually supposed to be covered with rings if you go by the art card, and honestly, I really didn't feel like doing that, so I just highlighted the bottom of the skirt and the top of the hat, which you'll see later, with a second brighter color on top of the green, a brighter green that it's already highlighted with, so that it stands out more. I just didn't feel like doing it. I was afraid I was going to smudge them and everything, and honestly, I'm really happy with the way this model turned out. So, the skirt ends up just being, well, a skirt. It takes actually a decent amount of time to paint for some reason. The earlier parts of this model I was being very careful with, instead of just slapping paint on to get the base coat done and clean it up in between takes. But, yeah, it still turned out not taking too long. The hat, again, same exact color. In the case of the hat and many other parts, I'm painting over the metal rings. Like, you can see me hesitating from doing that until right there. Because I wanted to make sure I had the inside of the ring filled in, and then just paint over it with the metallic that I do later. And again, I end up, instead of painting the design rings on, I just end up highlighting it yellow later. Speaking of yellow, here is the tie, which I wanted to be a really bright yellow. And I do end up painting a sort of version of the school insignia on, which is on the bottom of the tie. Then onto the nunchucks, the handle parts being painted a brighter green. This is actually the same green that I used to highlight the green for the cloth. And I don't know how I felt about trying to get this, because it looked very marbly in the image, and I'm like, I don't want to try to replicate this. I just, half the time I'm just happy to get my models done. Then onto the backpack, which is being painted a darker red color, and I mentioned that as darker red because it is a shade darker than the hair ends up being, and in the filming here, they almost look the same until you see them literally next to each other, and even then they kind of do. And then, avoiding to paint that little adorable bear right now. Or at least I think it's a bear. Maybe it's a fox. I don't know. It looks like a bear. And of course, you can see the paint wearing away from the hat, because I wasn't really too careful with the base coat. Again, base coats, I just care about getting the model looking full, like full paint. Then the hair itself, making her a redhead as she was in the photo. Like I said, this is a slightly brighter shade of red. Now, the hair I had to be a lot more careful with, especially around the face, because it's just all over the place. And I didn't want to just end up getting it, well, all over the place. But regardless, it wasn't too much of an issue. I don't remember why the hair itself entirely took me too long to paint, but it did take a pretty long amount of time. I think I was really cautious with this model, and I don't really like doing that with the base coat because it's just easier to get paint on the model, make mistakes as you go, because you're going to make mistakes anyway. But like, here's a moment where you can see really clearly it is two different shades of red. Speaking of the backpack, I end up missing part of the strap, and I'm mentioning that now because while it is filmed, it's not there for too long, but what her right hand is holding on to is the strap of the backpack itself. Now, I do love how they got this to cover the face just right, and you can now see it. It's a little hard to see on this camera until the red is painted in. That's where the hair is. Then on to the adorable little bear, who is not, contrary to my vision early on, meant to be all just a tannish color. I can't remember if it's actually got some wrappings around the arms, and then I didn't notice the nose or the ears or the paws, the nose being black, and as you can see, as I'm getting it now, the pink for the ears. Then what is effectively her tail, just being painted a standard gray. I believe I used the same shade of gray that I used for my Kingdom Death flat bases like this one, which that was painted off screen because I didn't want to waste your time, honestly. And getting all the facets of this, like every little intricate thing, was a little annoying, honestly. But, managed to fill them all in. Took a few extra tries. Although, when that thing gets inked, it looks amazing. Then, on to what is actually majority of the model. Black, because she's got black stockings and a black jacket underneath. And the gloves themselves, although they're more of a grayish color, I still wanted to base coat them black. Again, don't know why I was so careful painting this model. At least with the base coat, of course. And then, like I said, the actual body of the jacket is being painted here. I think this was the first model that I ended up painting with the current pot of black paint that I have, and I don't really like how it's working. I won't bother mentioning the brand, but it feels very runny, and it's taking multiple coats just to fill in some basic things. It's not running off like it's ink or anything like that, or it's watered down. It's just, it leaves streaks, and it's really annoying, honestly, especially when I have to paint models that are more covered in black than this was. Like, for example, the most recent model I finished at the time of recording this audio was Harry Potter for the miniatures game, and his cloak was just all sorts of streaky till like the third coat, and I prefer things being done on the first, maybe second coat. I did find it odd that the gloves were also black. Again, they come off more as a gray in the image, which I think I highlight more. I highlight them more to get that across, but whatever, they're still very dark. I would have expected something more to match the hat or something like that, but me being me, I have the tendency to copy artwork rather than do my own creative stuff, because I'm not really good at picking colors. One of the most time-consuming things for me about getting to painting models is just picking colors for preset artwork. And I apologize about the focus there. My camera's been having some issues when it comes to getting to focus on models when painting them. And it's not something I always notice because I'm focusing on, well, painting the model. So, on to the stockings. The stockings I end up attempting an effect on later. You'll see this when I'm highlighting them, in which I wanted to not the top of it where that's either folded over or some thick elastic to hold it up. The rest of it, I end up highlighting instead of a gray like I do most black. I end up highlighting it the base coat that I use for the flesh color, so that it looks like it is stretching and thus partially see-through and exposing what would be the color of her flesh. And thus, I wanted to try that. I think it came out pretty decent, although it was kind of sloppily done. I'm still very happy with it. This is actually, this model as a whole, I'm very happy with the result of. This is currently actually the model that I prefer using the most as my own personal miniature when playing Kingdom Death. Getting the bottom of the boots, I've debated whether or not to paint them black or gray, and as you can see, I definitely went with black. I think gray would not have worked too well anyway, and it would have been something that if it matched the image, I would have altered, because it would have been the same gray that is the base, and it would have just looked kind of odd. Then onto some brown leather pieces. I don't really know what that is underneath her jacket, but that's what the color of it was, and it's definitely not a piece of clothing, so as in it's not the shirt. And then the boots. The boots were pretty straightforward. This way was a little bit more sloppy on, as in I just painted right over the laces and didn't care. Although they were a bit of a pain in the ink wash, and I'm glad that it came out fine in the highlight coat, but yeah, the ink itself wanted to well right up on those laces and almost made them look like just giant, thick black lines. I do find it amusing how often I end up using this brown on models. It just, there's almost always some either dark tree bark, some thick leather, or in the case of the Lonely Tree, which I not too long ago finished, there was pottery hanging in the tree. And it's just okay. So here's me fixing the strap. Like I said, doesn't last too long. And then going around with a mid-range metallic for the rings on the various places, which is primarily the boots, the stockings, which you just see, the hat, also the zipper itself on the bag, then basically what's her belt, and the place it primarily gets used outside the rings is the nunchucks themselves. Which, as a note, is something that I always find really interesting with the Death High line so far, is that they all have some sort of weapon, be they set up to look like delinquents or not. Like the Preacher and the White Speaker definitely more set up to look like delinquents, and it's actually said in the write-up that and her lip piercing as well, that the Ringtail Fox is a transfer student to the school. So here I am moving on to the ink coat, and it makes the hair look tremendously better. I've been saying lately for almost the last half a year that my models, once their base coat is done, I started saying this actually when I painted the Butcher, they look a lot like putty. And I know that's because the inking coat is not put in, which will make a lot of the details stand out. But it's just kind of off-putting and makes me feel a little down till then. But I know it's coming, so it doesn't get me down too much. So, like I said, the inking coat actually made this model look much better. It does kind of mess up her face, and as I said earlier with the laces, but unlike some other models, they came out pretty well after a highlight. So as I was saying, each of them have a weapon currently, and at the time of recording this audio, there is the White Speaker, the Ringtail Fox obviously, and the Preacher male, who relatively in order have a bowkin, I believe it is, wooden sword, which that actually broke recently on the White Speaker. My filming rig, when I was painting the Lonely Tree, fell right on it and snapped it, and a midsection of it just disappeared. So I had to replace it with putty. The nunchucks, as you can see, and a giant sledgehammer, like a la Ramona Flowers level, a big giant sledgehammer with the male Preacher. It's ridiculous looking. So onto the highlighting coat, starting with a brighter tone flesh. This is the same tone that I use when I actually want, as a base coat, when I want to make a character look pale. Then onto white, which you can see I did a little bit too much when it comes to hitting the coat. Now, I had trouble highlighting the bear, which I can't even remember. I probably highlighted it white, but as you can see, it's just highlight, wipe away, and it took like 3 or 4 times to get it done. It was a pain. Now, on to trying, or as I was saying, how I tried to make the stockings look semi-see-through, which was a bit of a mess to begin with, and as well as the second moment later on. It looks a lot better in person, but you can, because of how close the camera is, you can see almost every little bit of paint that's on there and all the, yeah. It does look kind of messy, but overall effect, I'm still happy with it. I am still no way a master painter, so I'm just happy when the idea gets across or things don't look like total garbage. But, like I said, in my opinion, it worked. I believe I ended up repainting the top of it black just to make it look somewhat glossy. And then onto the hat and the skirt as well, end up being, like I said, highlighted the same color that was used as the base coat of the Nunchucks. Trying to say coat and Nunchucks at the same time. Blech. And then I go back over them later with a yellow. I think I'm either doing that right now. That green and yellow are so very close when they're spread out. Or I end up doing it when I get to the Nunchucks. The bag is being highlighted the same color as the base coat of the hair, and the hair will actually get highlighted orange. So here's actually the yellow now, which is also being used to highlight the Nunchucks. It did somewhat pull off the look of the marble effect, but I didn't really care if I got it or not. It was just more coincidental, and like I said, I didn't want to try to paint on the rings. So here's the hair being highlighted in orange to make it look more like a bright red head rather than well, like my own hair looks with a more darker red head. And like I said, it gets the effect across real nice. The boots end up being highlighted the same color, and I think I went a little bit too overboard with the highlight because it almost looks like I repainted them as such, as the base coat of the bear. But like I said, I ended up fixing the laces primarily by highlighting them. I might have also painted it a bit off camera. I do a lot of my touch-up work for this stuff off camera. In fact, what is it? Harry Potter, or no, this model, not Harry Potter, although there will be some post-filming fixing. Her face I did a lot more work on, because that's when I applied like the makeup effects and everything, so that it actually looks like it more does in the picture, and less of a mess, honestly. Not to say lack of makeup makes a face look like a mess, but in this case, the face just looked like a mess, and the makeup just gave it more detail. Really useful on a small, tiny face, as long as it's big enough that you can actually paint said details. Then doing all the metallics, which is pretty much the rest of it. And that is, actually. Alright, everyone. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to press the like button. If you want to, if you feel like sharing this video, or you think somebody else will enjoy this, please share this video. Either way, you'll help this video get seen more. If you didn't like this video, go ahead and press the dislike button. I won't mind, but please leave a constructive comment as to why. I'm sorry that I was a lot more rambly this time, but hey, sometimes you are. If you want to comment in general, such as you want to comment about my painting techniques, be it you think they're good or bad, or ask about them, feel free to. Or if you want to see me do other models, specifically ones that I've already done unboxing videos for, go ahead and ask. This was actually a request video from an actual thread of the unboxing video of this model. And if you want to see more like this, be it my unboxing videos, my painting videos, or my board game overview videos, all three of which I do for Kingdom Death Monster, feel free to subscribe. Regardless, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye!